Army Reserve Command Change of Responsibility Ceremony. Today, we have gathered to bid farewell to Command Sergeant Major Andrew Lombardo as he relinquishes responsibility as the 14th United States Army Reserve Command Sergeant Major to Command Sergeant Major Gregory Betty, and we welcome him as the 15th Command Sergeant Major of the United States Army Reserve. We are thrilled to extend a warm welcome to Sergeant Major Betty's family members and friends joining us today. His wife Donna, his son Jordan, his son Gregory Jr. and daughter Ryan connecting with us virtually, his mother Clara, his sister Shantae and niece Kiara, and his uncle Colin. We are grateful for the presence of all other family members and friends celebrating this special occasion with us. We would like to welcome our distinguished guest, CSM Holland, the Command Sergeant Major of the United States Forces Command. The 13th CSM of the Army National Guard, Command Sergeant Major John Raines and Mrs. Raines. Command Sergeant Major retired Michael Schultz, the 11th Sergeant Major of the Army Reserve. Command Sergeant Major retired Luther Thomas, the 12th Sergeant Major of the Army Reserve. Ms. Marsha Lilly, United States Army Reserve Ambassador for North Carolina. Mr. Bob Irvin, United States Army Reserve Ambassador for North Carolina. On behalf of the Secretary for North Carolina Department of Military and Veteran Affairs, Mr. Rick Long, and all of our MSC command teams in attendance today, thank you. The music for today's ceremony is performed by the 208th Army Band under the direction of CW3 Robert Slade, and our pre- and post-ceremony music by our bagpipe, Mr. Doug Elwell. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the arrival of the official party and the rendering of honors, and remain standing for the invocation delivered to us this morning by Chaplain Ducharme, followed by the national anthem. Thank you, Chaplain Ducharme. Please be seated. At this time, Sergeant First Class Subayan from Bravo Battery, 1st Battalion of the 319th Airborne Field Artillery Regiment is presenting CSM Lombardo with the last canister fired from today's salute battery in honor of his selfless and time-honored service to the United States Army Reserve. At this time, Sergeant First Class Ramirez will present a bouquet of yellow roses to CSM Betty's wife, Donna. On behalf of the officers, non-commissioned officers, soldiers, and civilians of the Army Reserve Command, we welcome her to the Double Eagle family. Yellow is the color of new beginnings and symbolizes her arrival to the command. In time, Donna's rosebuds will blossom, as will her relationship with the command. The change of responsibility is a simple yet traditional event that is rich with symbolism and heritage. The key to the ceremony is the passing of the unit's colors. The very soul of a military unit is symbolized in the colors under which it fights, for they represent not only the lineage and honors of the unit, but also the loyalty and unity of its soldiers. The custodian of the unit colors is the Command Sergeant Major, who is the senior enlisted soldier in the unit and principal advisor to the commander. CSM Lombardo will retrieve the colors from the color bearer and pass the colors to Lieutenant General Daniels for the last time. The passing of the colors symbolizes the relinquishment of responsibility and authority from CSM Lombardo. Then, Lieutenant General Daniels will pass the colors to CSM Betty, charging him with the responsibility and authority that comes with his position. Charge orders for CSM Betty. Let it be known from this day forward that Lieutenant General Jody J. Daniels, Commanding General of the United States Army Reserve Command, has placed special trust and confidence in your patriotism, dedication, integrity, and leadership abilities. Therefore, you are hereby appointed as the 15th Command Sergeant Major of the United States Army Reserve. CSM Betty will return the colors back to the color bearer. Ladies and gentlemen, the Commanding General of the United States Army Reserve, Lieutenant General Jody J. Daniels.
Good morning. Everyone's awake. That's awesome. All right. So, Army Reserve, friends, family, welcome to today's change of responsibility as we pay tribute to Command Sergeant Major Andrew Lombardo and welcome Command Sergeant Major Gregory Betty. Before I begin, there's a bunch of people we need to recognize, starting with, I know Sergeant Major Lombardo's family wasn't able to make it here, but we want to thank them for all of his support. And we do have with us present today Sergeant Major Betty's family members, his wife Donna, their son Jordan, his son Gregory, their son. We got Jordan, Gregory, and then we got daughter Ryan joining us virtually. We got Mom Claire, thanks so much for coming and joining us. We've got Sister Shante, niece Kiara, and Uncle Colin. So thanks to all the family for making it out here. You guys are super important. We're glad you're with us. Distinguished guests. We've got Command Sergeant Major Holland, Command Sergeant Major Rains, Command Sergeant Major Retired Jones, Command Sergeant Major Retired Schultz, Command Sergeant Major Retired Thomas, all super important people in our lineage. We also have with us Army Reserve Ambassadors Lily and Irvin, and then Mr. Rick Long, representing Secretary for North Carolina Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. We know he couldn't be here due to an injury, but we're glad you're here to represent. Fellow general officers, family and friends, civilians and soldiers of the Army Reserve Command, welcome to today's ceremony and thank you all for being here. The Command Sergeant Major of the U.S. Army Reserve Command, or USARC, is the keystone of our enlisted force, overseeing tens of thousands of soldiers and NCOs worldwide, the most senior and respected non-commissioned officer within our ranks. This role comes with a dual responsibility, to serve as the senior enlisted advisor to the Chief of Army Reserve. That would be me. So 2 roles, they get to talk to me twice. This means that that individual must represent the equities of the citizen soldier as policies are developed by the Department of the Army staff. This is not an insignificant role, and it comes with the necessity to be present and engaged as the department establishes or updates how it operates. When I took on the role of Chief of Army Reserve in July of 2020, we were at the height of the pandemic. The Army Reserve had just begun on one of the largest domestic mobilizations in our history. Both Sergeant Major Lombardo and I came into our roles very motivated to get our soldiers engaged in training. But with lockdowns and different rules across all the different states, we were up against some really tough challenges. Sergeant Major Lombardo was relentless during this time frame, engaging, interacting with commands across our footprint, providing me with feedback on where we stood at any moment, where the problems were, and how we were going to go about fixing them. While we were limited to our ability to travel, we could still visit units via CVR or Zoom. Everybody loves Zoom, right? So we did, and it was pretty awesome to do virtual drive-bys and drop-ins. So one Saturday morning, we managed to hit 4 units. We hit 4 units in 4 states in 2 hours. It was pretty. Teleportation was that superpower we all wish we had. We kind of had it that day. So during our first year, we ended up talking to probably over 2,000 different soldiers through this mechanism of drive-bys. So even though it wasn't possible to be there in person, we were still trying to get out and reach and make contact with as many soldiers as we could. And Sergeant Major did bunches of others that I wasn't involved with. So the Army Reserve also did 2 mass training events with over 1,000 different personnel focusing on each one, doing individual proficiency. And that was really great because some of those soldiers got to be much more comfortable in how they did their individual warrior tasks and drills, land nav, all those different kinds of skills. And they got very comfortable. And it was really good to have a few people out doing some activities, getting our trainers out, our OCTs working as well. The next year, we could then safely get back to in-person training, in-person battle assemblies. Command Sergeant Major Lombardo helped me to reinforce, down to the soldier level, the Army Reserve's priority of tough, realistic training done safely. He was instrumental in getting that buy-in for what exciting, interesting, fascinating, cool, wacky, fun, crazy, purposeful training could be from a recruiting and retention standpoint as well, and how to get everyone out there telling their incredible Army Reserve stories. Since that time, Sergeant Major Lombardo has made an incomparable impact to the force, and probably the most significant was the E5 and 5 initiative. The initiative was meant to reinforce the standard of promoting potential, and to reduce the average time of our young enlisted troops spent waiting to become an NCO, waiting to join the non-commissioned officer corps. The objective was to reduce our average time in service by about 18 months, and at least 18 months, if not more, to bring that number down. Command Sergeant Major Lombardo had already streamlined the promotion board process, but many were still committed to filling and generating tables full of paper to put into packets. So he reached out across the senior enlisted channels to get buy-in, provide learning opportunities on how to conduct a board and how the boards were changing, to gain accessibility to schools for promotion, and just generally generate some energy across our junior ranks. It's made an incredible impact on our specialist and Sergeant E5 populations. The Army Reserve had not achieved 100% of fill at the sergeant grade since 2019. Engaging in all these efforts, the Army Reserve quickly reached our authorized strength of sergeants in just a few months. We have since achieved over 109% of our authorized sergeant strength. This overstrength is intended to enable us to grow our staff sergeant and warrant officer populations of the future. Now, it wasn't just at the sergeant level that Sergeant Major Lombardo wanted improvements and promotions. He envisioned an improved school management process and collaborated with the USARC team to put into place a far more effective process that affected the entire NCO Corps. He also pushed for modifications to Army policies to make sure that Army Reserve soldiers had an equal chance to get into the schools required for promotion within the NCO Corps and not be outpaced by their active and National Guard counterparts. As much as we love the National Guard, we don't want you guys to win, okay? Just saying. Let's be honest, come on. Sergeant Major Lombardo focused on training the sharpest and the best prepared warriors the Army Reserve has ever seen. Partnered with the G357 competitive programs to put on the Army Reserve's first expert soldier badge. After that was successful, he proceeded putting forward the E3B, the expert infantry badge, the expert soldier badge, and the expert field medical badge events. He also oversaw the rollout of the Army Combat Fitness Test, or the ACFT, much beloved by all, along with the equipment to go with it, which was no small undertaking. He will also probably thank Sergeant Major Dunstan for helping out with that effort. She was helping quite a bit, a lot. This was challenging enough for the active component, but even more so for the Army Reserve to get all that equipment out there and to adjust to this new big change. Sergeant Major Lombardo has had a pulse on every unit, getting the feedback and rotating among leadership teams to see what changes were needed so we could adapt as necessary. In order to make that kind of an impact, you can't be sitting around in an office. And he hasn't been that kind of behind the scenes, call me on teams kind of NCO. Over the last 4 years, he's been on the road a grand total of 810 days. Yep, 810. That's more than 50% of his tenure. When you think about a soldier who leads from the front, you're looking at him. Sergeant Major, it has been an honor to work with you. I can say without reservation that we could not have done it without each other, and it's been a pleasure and to work with you. I appreciate all the work that you have put in on behalf of the Army Reserve. The officers you worked with were buoyed by your expertise. The soldiers across the nation benefited from your constant investment in their welfare. The warrant officers are grateful for the quality of soldiers who have joined their ranks. And the NCOs you tirelessly support will be the first to tell you the backbone of the Army remains strong. Thank you very much, and I wish you the best as you head back to the New York Police Department. So, taking the reins today from him, Command Sergeant Major Gregory Betty. He was selected from across the CSM ranks for his incredible track record as a soldier and as an NCO. He was hanging out at TRADOC when he was selected. Actually, his TRADOC role was vital to the Army Reserve as we review content and length of all of our professional development proficiency courses. Command Sergeant Major Betty has already been a Command Sergeant Major at the 88th Readiness Division, the 100th Training Division, Leader Development, and multiple logistics brigades and regiments. He has a well-rounded career background, and I know he will continue to make an impact as he now takes on his leadership role as a senior enlisted member of our 175,000 person strong team, not to mention our 10 to 11,000 civilians that help support us every day. I know that his wife, Donna, and their 3 children, Jordan, Gregory, and Ryan, are incredibly proud of this moment and the huge role that he's about to take on. Thanks very much for your support, leading up to today in advance of the support you all will provide him in the years to come, as well as mom and niece. So please, let's give the family a round of applause for all their support. I promise that I will make this a smooth transition and put in a good word with the next commanding general so he's not out of the house like his predecessor for the next 800 days. I know the troops remain in good hands, and I'm glad to know that this change of responsibility maintains the path that we're on towards a strong, capable, fighting Federal Reserve force that's ready now, shaping tomorrow. Thanks, everyone, for coming today.
Ladies and gentlemen, the outgoing Command Sergeant Major of the United States Army Reserve, Command Sergeant Major Andrew Lombardo.
We had the same green folder. I'm glad it's still here and somebody didn't take it. I'm not used to that much verbiage about me. I sort of zoned out in the middle of that. I was like, whoops. Hey, just before we begin, just want to acknowledge the United States Army Reserve Command Color Guard, the 208th Army Band, the Salute Battery, Chaplain Ducharme, Chaplain, thank you very much, Piper Doug Elwell, obviously Command Sergeant Major Holland, Sergeant Major Raines, Command Sergeant Major Retired Jones, Command Sergeant Major Retired Schultz, Command Sergeant Major Retired Thomas, Ambassador Lilly, Ambassador Irvin, all very important to my life. And CSM Holland, thank you so much for setting me up with the ESB and talking to me about that when you were at the 18th Airborne Corps. I couldn't have done it without your input. Sergeant Major Minion, I appreciate your presence as well. Distinguished guests, family, friends, civilians, and soldiers of the Army Reserve Command, and those watching online, thank you for attending the ceremony. To the New York City Police Department, thank you for providing me the opportunity to take on this incredible role and all its demands. From the moment I arrived, one of the people I knew I could instantly rely on for leadership and guidance was Mr. Steve Austin, the ACAR. Thank you, sir. You've been a great mentor and a supporter, especially with money, over the years. Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Hamilton, Mrs. Russell, you are the Army Reserve, and that applies to you too. Thank you very much. I want to pay special thanks to Lieutenant General retired Charles Lucky, who took a chance on a very candid New York City cop. He gave me the opportunity of a lifetime when he selected me for this position, especially at a time when today's police officers are being treated as this generation's Vietnam veterans. I want to thank the USARC and the OCAR staffs, the directors, the sergeants majors, and everybody in them, the DCARS team, the chief of staff, for your support, mentorship, and guidance along the way, as well as my personal team, Command Sergeant Major retired Jason Gandalf Johnson, Sergeant Major Sandra Master Cook, Sergeant Major George The Wall Picard, Master Sergeant Luke The Force Klein, Master Sergeant Daniel Steady Volstead, Sergeant First Class James the Texan Whitman, and Sergeant First Class Javier, I've got game, Arona. You know what I'm talking about. And last but not least, Sergeant Major Cody Oz Prohaska of the Senior Leader Development Office. And finally, I'd like to express my most sincere gratitude to my commander. I'm often asked what it's like to work with General Daniels. So to give you an idea, I'll share a quick story from one of our early pre-command course engagements. I was explaining to the future leaders that the left and right limits of any sergeant major's lane is defined only by his or her commander, and that my best commanders have given me a highway, not a lane. And that's where she stopped me right on the stage. And without skipping a beat, she says, Sergeant Major, I didn't give you a highway, I gave you the nation. And I really appreciated that, especially since I'm a New Yorker, ma'am, and a cop. And you know we can be aggressive drivers, and we're not easy on cars. So I thank you for giving me the authority, or the autonomy, and the trust. And as far as cars go, you're a top-line classic, again. For me, it's been quite a ride. The main thing I was excited about when I came on board was the opportunity to make a bigger difference. Because of command team's focus from day one, the need to develop and retain cohesive teams and units disciplined and fit to accomplish their wartime mission had special meaning to me. Here's my war story. As a young sergeant, I was called up with little to no notification to deploy to Operation Desert Storm in Saudi Arabia. And as we were descending to touchdown on the runway in theater, I had a million thoughts running through my head. We were a strategic reserve. I remember stepping off the plane onto the desert ground and being greeted by the loud sirens and the concussive sounds of Scud missiles that were intercepted but still fell to the ground. So I donned my mask, I scrambled for my mop gear, thinking, did we train enough for this? Could I have trained my troops better? And I promised myself that if I made it out of that deployment alive, I would do better. I would ensure that I always gave my utmost to ensure that my soldiers received the training they needed to survive. The lesson that I learned in that moment holds true today. For every soldier in every war, we need to train to the limits of our strength at every opportunity so when the unexpected comes, we have the best chance to succeed. And thanks to General Daniels' vision and leadership, that's been the focus of my entire tenure. Despite the pandemic, we got back to tough, realistic training done safely. We're executing individual and collective tasks, exercises, again. We implemented new competitive programs such as the Expert Soldier Badge, the Best Squad competition, and re-energized the International Confederation of Reserve Officers military competition. Thank you, Sergeant Major Deanne, Master Guns Dunstan. As General Daniels mentioned, we're executing new effective policies like NCO evaluations boards. We centralized the schools of senior leader and master leader course. We took on the E5 and 5 initiative, solving the problem of having 16,000 excess specialists and achieving our big, hairy, audacious goal with an excess of over 3,000 sergeants. Now let's get some staff sergeants, please. And we began setting the stage to support large-scale combat operations. From training to resourcing to equipping, we're preparing our warfighters for what really matters. Because we owe our soldiers, and we owe the American people a trained and ready force. I mentioned earlier that one of the things I was excited about when I took the position was the opportunity to make a positive impact. And the other thing that I find incredibly meaningful is the opportunity to serve and support our citizen soldiers. Because it's impossible to get to this position without learning along the way the quality and the merit of the Army Reserve soldier. Each member of this force is in equal parts a combination of the American citizen and the American warrior. The citizen brings the unique and advanced talents honed in the civilian world to the battlefield. But there's something deeper about that commitment. These are not warriors who want to fight. These are warriors who fight when their nation, their families, and their loved ones need them to. They contribute to our nation's economy and the international strength through their civilian occupations and community influence, but would not stand idly by while others protect that which they know must be protected. The citizen soldier carries on the spirit of the revolution with a tradition that goes back that far. I know, John, not that far. Setting aside their livelihoods whenever called upon to do so, casting their lots as one to fight our nation's enemies. In peace and in war, these Americans remain ready to preserve the ideals, the principles, and the foundations of this great nation. I say that because it's been a remarkable privilege to witness our soldiers carrying on that great tradition, training passionately and relentlessly, in tandem with the requirements of their civilian trades in the best traditions of the Minutemen of Lexington and Concord, from who they draw their fighting spirit, and which we share with our brothers in the Army National Guard. It's our duty to look out for our soldiers and families and to prepare the nation's citizen soldiers for the fight of tomorrow. And I'm proud to say that the team has done an extraordinary job moving the needle. We're absolutely shaping tomorrow. As for me, I hope that I've been able to put a small dent in the Army Reserve universe, and I hope it's for the better, and instilled in our future leaders the need to remain laser focused on training and proficiency. But there's always more to do, and more training to be done, and more sharpening of the blade, which is why I'm glad to be passing this flag along to Command Sergeant Major Gregory Betty. Sergeant Major Betty is a professional soldier, and I couldn't think of a better non-commissioned officer to lead this formation too. We first met back in 2017 when he followed me as the Command Sergeant Major of the 100th Training Division Leader Development, and he's been cleaning up my mess ever since. We're both from Long Island, AKA Strong Island, and we both work for the city of New York. I've seen his work ethic and professionalism, and I know he's going to excel in his role. Soldiers, you are in good hands. Sergeant Major Betty, all the best to you and Donna as you take on the reins. And one last story before I hand over the mic. I just saw Sergeant Major Betty signaling for the hook. If you follow the news, you may have seen the national story of New York's finest responding to disorder at one of New York's private universities recently. I used to work in the disorder control unit, and they did a pretty amazing job from my perspective. As I watched the report unfold, I thought, that's my crew. I'm so freaking proud of these guys. And I'm part of the finest police department in the world, the NYPD. And for the past 4 years, I've also served as the Army Reserve's senior non-commissioned officer. And looking out at you all here today, you're my crew. And in my finest New York, I'm so freaking proud of you guys too. And like most of our citizen soldier force, I'll take what I've learned in uniform as part of the world's most capable and ready land force back to my community, back to my city, and they will be the better for it. And I will continue to stand ready if the nation calls. To the officers, warrant officers, non-commissioned officers, and soldiers who I've served with along the way, thank you very much for your support and guidance. I just want to mention Command Sergeant Major retired Mike Donahue, who drove down from Monroe, New York to witness the ceremony. Thank you, brother. I really appreciate it. It has been the honor of my life to lead and serve you as the 14th Command Sergeant Major of the Army Reserve. Like every citizen soldier, I've got a job at home waiting for me. And it's time to put down the rifle and the rucksack and pick up the shield and pistol and lead the cops of the city of New York. In the words of the NYPD motto, Fidelis ad mortem, fidelity unto death, twice the citizen. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 15th Command Sergeant Major of the United States Army Reserve, Command Sergeant Major Gregory O. Betty.
I ran up so because my speech is going to be long. I cut my time. So that's why I ran up. Also, I didn't get a fancy green folder. I'm not there yet, so I ran out. So I got my speech right here. You just open it up. All right, I'm a little nervous, so just go with it. Go with it. I appreciate everyone coming out. Team over there. So good morning, Lieutenant General Daniel, distinguished guests, general officers, command sergeant majors, soldiers, and most importantly, my family. See some Holland? I see some Rains. Appreciate you being here. First and foremost, let me start. I also want to acknowledge everyone who's watching via Facebook Live. And I appreciate you getting up from all different time zones to participate in this historic moment, anything is possible event. First and foremost, I want to recognize the leaders who applied for this position. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to compete among the giants in our organization. My closing comment at my interview was to tell the interviewer that they had a monumental task of selecting the next Army Reserve Command Sergeant Major. From the list of Olympians they had to choose from. Please join me in a round of applause for these great Americans. Secondly, I'd like to ask my family and friends who traveled here from all over the country to show me support on this day to stand up to be recognized. I love you all. Home front support, including our civilian employees, is vital to service member having a successful career. At this point, I need all enlisted personnel to stand up. Yes, everyone on Facebook Live also. Let's give CSM Lombardo a round of applause for his leadership, guidance, and constant effort to better our NCO Corps during his 4-year tenure. Thank you, Sergeant Major. For the past 6 weeks, I have slept about 3 to 4 hours a night and ran about 50 miles a week preparing for today. during those runs, I would formulate what my speech would sound like. I had some really good ones, but I never wrote anything down. So every run was a different speech, right? I also drew from music I listened to while running. Bob Marley is my favorite artist to listen to draw inspiration from. Words like that until the basic human rights are equally guaranteed to all, without regard to race, this is a war. And if you know your history, then you would know where you're coming from. Then you wouldn't have to ask me, who the heck do you think I am? Powerful words from almost 50, that's almost 50 years old and still very relevant today. But not even the great Bob Marley could get me to put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard. So here I am today delivering this final version of my speech. So as I do so, I want you to recognize 3 significant events that over the past 3 weeks finally helped me shape this speech. The first event was the 99th RD Senior CSM Symposium led by CSM Pompey. Now, at that symposium, right, I see General Bellinger over there waving. I see you, ma'am. So at that symposium, CSM Pompey had three master sergeants. 3 master sergeants come out, and they did vignettes. And one of the vignettes that caught my attention was it was Master Sergeant Owens. She put out that innovations. She spoke about innovations, and the reaction from the group in the room was significant, because folks, I say the old folks like me. I'm the old folk now. We're not used to change, and when you say innovation, it's like they're like afraid about innovation. But if we don't include our younger soldiers into the fight and what they know, what they have learned, we're not going to win the fight. So we got to incorporate the new soldiers in and what they're learning. They're going to college. They're going to these high-priced universities, and they're coming here. Army Ignited is well spent, right? Money is being spent, so let them have those degrees, and let's incorporate that training. So CSM Pompey, I appreciate you inviting me to that venue, and that really drove home the need that we need to think innovation. Because if you turn the news on, I think CSM alluded to it, how we fighting now is not how we fought when I was in Desert Storm. So we have to change, we have to be innovative, and make sure we move the reserve forward and the National Guard and active duty. So secondly, the second event was the TRADOC USARC Senior Leaders Sync, led by my former boss, Major General Linton. Now, at that event, we went out, we did some staff rides, but at the event, we also went and we had lunch with the AIT soldiers, right? Phenomenal event where we just went into the DFAC. We made sure that they were there. Went into the DFAC, and we just picked a table. And I challenge every leader here to do that once, whenever. Even go to the schoolhouses and put your PTs on and just go. There's no rank, no name in your PTs, and just blend in and do an ACFT with some of these soldiers. You'll be amazed at the stuff they say, right? So we go in, and we're sitting. We just pick a table, any table, and we go and we sit down. So I'm sitting at my table, and everyone is eating, and they're a little nervous because I am in uniform, Sergeant Major. So they're like, oh, these are private. These are brand new to the Army. They're in AIT. They second tour for the civilians in the room. So we go in and we sit at the table, and I said, hey, how is it going? And they're like, hey, everything's great, Sergeant Major. I said, would you tell your friends and family to join the military? Now, this is all compo. This is compo 1, 2, and 3. So active duty, National Guard, and reserves. So everyone was like, yes, I would, except one soldier. But in that process, now this is random, completely random. We just picked a table, any table. There were 2 soldiers back and forth speaking. And they kind of heard a little accent from me, and I heard a little accent from them. and they go, wait, Himayadi, right? So a translation for that, Hima is he is, Yadi is Jamaican. So it's like, so he's Jamaican, right? So we had a Jamaican moment where it was like, oh my God. So they saw that anything is possible. You too can become Sergeant Major. And they didn't know it was coming to be this. I was sticking to my trade doc position, but they saw the E9 is possible for anyone. So the one soldier that said he would not tell anyone about joining the military, he was actually going active duty. And I said, why? What's wrong? So no, I'm not picking on you. I'm not. but he said his thing was it didn't work for him and his family being on active duty. So I said, have you ever heard of Compo 2 and 3? Really, Compo 3? I didn't want to bring Compo 2 in. I'm trying to build up my force. So he's like, yes, but the chapter that they chapped him out on wouldn't allow him to join the reserve or the National Guard. So I said, hold on a second. I had General Hockett, which is the USAREC commander, with me. So I said, hey, sir, I need to talk to the soldier. So General Hockett, if you're in there, I need some follow-up on that, see how we went. Actually, there were 2 events where I had to pull General Hockett in. There's another soldier that needed some help. So it was a great event where we got to pull some soldiers in. And one of the big things that happened at that thing, Major General Wallace was sitting at a table with all female soldiers just talking. And the look on their face, now these are brand new soldiers to the service. And they looked at her like, OMG, that's a 2-star general, right? So I took a picture of it and I sent it to Major General and I said, see me, be me. Anything is possible. So the third event was the 94th Training Division CSM Symposium. So now CSM Dar is right here. He learned from CSM Pompey and from the trade docs. His event was like grandiose, right? So smart CSM. So having the ability to speak in a room filled with senior leaders was phenomenal, especially coming into this position. It was phenomenal. The question Sergeant Major Dar asked me was, tell us something no one knows about you, right? And my response was, I like to smile, right? I said, you gotta smile. So Army Reserve, we're gonna smile, right? Because what the smile does, it makes us approachable, right? Soldiers will come to us and say, hey, I have a problem with XYZ. Suicides are up, right? We gotta make sure we get to them before they do something we don't want them doing. So I'm asking everyone to be more approachable so that soldiers will speak to us. We need that. Right now, this month, May, is Mental Health Awareness Month. Let's make sure if you need help, ask. It's not a sign of weakness, actually a sign of strength. So if you need that help, please reach out and ask. These recent experiences inadvertently helped me realize what I needed to say today. It's become clear to me that a brief, and it always held, perhaps subconsciously, in the foundation which I will build as I prepare to assume the responsibilities as your command sergeant major. Anything is possible. One of the most frequent questions asked from these events was, how did I get here? How did Sergeant Major Betty get here, right? So I'm gonna give you an abbreviated version to my answer. To start with, I became stronger from learning from my failures. Although I was turned down by many positions I applied for, I never gave up and I continued to apply to open positions. As I asked the generals who did not select me for their honest feedback and what I needed to work on. I made sure to stay up to date on military and civilian affairs, stayed fit, financially secured, spiritually and emotionally sound, and technically and tactically proficient at every level. Additionally, when in the room, add value to the conversation. I never focused on my next position, but rather remain focused on my current position. Soldiers and leaders can tell when a CSM is more concerned about what their careers and padding their evaluations than doing what they're charged to do. This theme is echoed every time the NCO creed is spoken. Hey, NCOs, I need you to help me finish up this line. All soldiers are entitled to outstanding leadership. I know my soldiers not always place they need. Those words, those are words NCO at every level must live by. Your evaluation will write itself if you live the Army values and adhere to the NCO creed. As I prepare to serve as your command sergeant major, I would like to express my gratitude to all the soldiers and leaders who have supported me throughout the 36 years I apologize in advance if I miss anyone's name, as there are so many people to thank. Please bear with me as I acknowledge some of those people who have helped me stay focused and helped me believe that anything is possible. Special shout out to the former leaders who have served in this position, especially CSM retired Michelle Jones, the first and only woman who served in this position. Applause, please. So I broke the list down into retirees and some to make it easy. So on the retired, we got Major General Hussey, Major General Falk, Major General Walter, Brigadier General McLaughlin, Colonel Wurzbach, Lieutenant Colonel Vanderbilt, Captain Walker, who's here, CSM Campbell. If she warned me if I didn't say her name in one of my speeches, she's come get me. So she's here to make sure. So that's one of my senior mentors, CSM Campbell. I appreciate you. CSM McKee, CSM Thomas, CSM Potts, CSM Budnick, First Sergeant Allen, my first sergeant when I was Private Betty. Master Sergeant Owens, Master Sergeant Isaac, Master Sergeant Austin, Sergeant First Class Raymond, and Staff Sergeant McCoy. Still serving. We got Lieutenant General Roper, Major General Baker, Major General Linton, Major General Wallace, Major General Bellinger, Major General Harder, Major General Charlie, Brigadier General Dreska, Colonel Fields, CSM Turner, CSM Provost, CSM Loeb, CSM Hubbard, CSM Musso, CSM Simple, CSM Tolbert, Master Sergeant Jamrose, Master Sergeant Gallucci, Master Sergeant Owens, Master Sergeant Lewis, Master Sergeant Kenny, Sergeant Calhoun, and Sergeant Hellerud. My Desert Storm crew, I have soldiers here from Desert Storm that came out to support me. I want to big them up. We got Sergeant Retired Allen, Sergeant Morgan, Staff Sergeant Jourdain, and Sergeant Johnson. The MTA crew, just like CSM Lombardo, we're twice the citizen. From MTA, I have Miss Diane Rogers and her husband that came out. So I appreciate you. I want to big up, if they're listening, big up to the Omni crew, One Metro New York, out there in the MTA world. I appreciate you guys. Saved my job. I'll be back. All right. So lastly, my family. Without them, this would not be possible. But I have four number one fans, four of them, right? So in fourth place in my number one fan are my siblings, right? Represented by my sister and her niece, and my niece, her daughter, Kiara. The third place are my children, represented by Jordan. The other two is off doing things that grown adults do, right? They're not here with dad. The second place is my wife, right? The second is still first, but she's second first, right? But she's still first. There's still a first in there. So all the wives, don't come at me, right? First place, my number one fan is my mother. So in conclusion, everybody go, ah. I would like to assign two critical responsibilities to all soldiers for the upcoming 3 years, maybe 4. These duties, don't tell Donna, these duties must be inculcated in each person by April 27, 2027. The first task is to remain grounded and not to be carried away by success by losing sight of one's roots. As Patrona Nelson Taylor, my mother-in-law, wisely stated to me when I was selected as number 15, never keep your head so far in the sky that you fail to keep your feet on the ground. It's imperative to maintain a sense of humility and remember where you come from, even during moments of triumph. The second and last thing, when it comes to character, who do you identify more as? A change agent or a go along to get along leader or soldier? Now, we're at the 88th Readiness Division with my boss over there, General Baker. We were doing a PT test once, and we saw soldiers running to the score sheet to see what the minimums are. Running to the score sheet, trying to do for the civilians, 60% is what we need to score in each event to have a successful ACFT, PT, what things that we do. So they're running to see what the minimum scores are. So when we finished the test, I took the formation, and I said to everyone, when do we train to 60%? When do we train? Do we go to war and only fire 60% of our rounds? Do we go to war and bring back only 60% of our soldiers? How would we explain that to the American population? So we started a thing at the 88th. We soldier to 100%. In everything we do, we soldier to 100%. At everything, not just in PT, but everything we do. Just like the boss says, we do effective training done safely. We do it at 100% so that when we do, if you do something at 100%, you will know where you are. But if you do it at 60%, you'll always be at 60%. So aim high. So the number, if numbers were allowed to speak, some would not associate with 0 and 1. Why 0 and 1, you may ask? Any number multiplied by 0, no matter how large it is what? 0, right? Some human beings are like zeros. If you associate with them, no matter how great your value is, they will bring you down to 0, right? So what about the number 1? A number multiplied by 1 is what? It remains the same, unchanged. Some people are like 1. No matter how much they touch your life, you remain the same. You will never grow or improve. Nope. So I want to thank CSM Kumbaka for sharing the problems with me. So soldiers, leaders, I ask you this. What kind of leader are you, and who do you associate with? Looking forward to this next chapter. Double Eagle 7, signing off. Let's get to work. Ready now.
Please rise for the playing of the Army song and remain standing for the retiring of the colors. This concludes our ceremony, and we thank you for attending. Please take a moment to welcome Command Sergeant Major Beatty and his family at the flagpole and bid farewell to Command Sergeant Major Lombardo at the eternal flame. Ready now.